Hi, I'm Gail.
And hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to Women Over 70 Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast. Please visit womenover70.com and consider joining Aging Reimagined Circle, our sustaining membership fund, so we may continue to inspire women to age with curiosity, courage, and creativity. Members enjoy monthly programming and probing discussions that matter to women. We hope to see you virtually on Zoom.
Dementia, romance, love, aging. Eme McAnam is the author of a powerful and provocative new senior literary romance novel that redefines the notion of fulfillment in one's golden years. Freefalling is her genre-changing story that's sure to stir deep emotions. Having grown up as one of 9 children in small-town Minnesota, Eme became a singer-songwriter who charted in the top 100 in country music. Among other pursuits, she was first the marketing director, then manager of an assisted living facility for 9.5 years. She knows seniors and their families. Eme believes we need more romantic literature for mature readers, and that while aging may have hurdles, it's not a stop sign. Eme, we're so happy to welcome you to Women Over 70 Aging Reimagined. And we're anxious for you to share the story of Freefalling with us and have our listeners get to know you. You told me that senior romance stories have a hard time being published. And the question I want us to start off with is, why does a writer write what she writes?
Well, I can tell you why this writer writes what she writes. I got to the season of my life where I realized I'd accumulated a lot of experiences and knowledge that I didn't have even 20 years ago. Although you do realize that 52% of the population is people over 50. So we're looking at a large group of people who are starting to be erased as their lives progress. And I had the experience and the pleasure of working with seniors and their families, but then I started becoming a senior. And adding the two experiences, well, here we are, free-falling.
Yes. And so, you know, I said a little bit about your past, but you tell us in your own words, how is it that you got to this place?
Well, how does anybody get to where they are? I would say for me that I got to the place of writing a novel by having been a singer-songwriter in my youth. Mm-hmm. And so through my adult life, as I acted like a grown-up, I formed and ran a fitness company. Then I got in financial services and, as you know, then senior services. But in the margin of my life, I continued writing the whole time. And I'm one of those people, when I am fleshing out my internal thoughts, it's in lyrics, which is a little weird. But because I wrote daily for 5 years and did 3 verses and a chorus, somehow the rhythm of a song is easier for me. It gets my emotion out of the way and lets my truth flow into the words. So coming into the senior experiences, I knew I had the goal of writing a novel. Mm-hmm. And I started to look at my legacy. I started to think about, with all of this experience, with these perspectives and this wild nature that I have, how am I going to take the combination and leave it on the page with a story that's hopeful but true? And although it's a novel, the stories within the story come from true spaces in life. And I'm trying to bring a hopeful perspective as we are walking through the challenges of our senior years. Mm-hmm. Because whether it be physical, mental, or even emotional challenges that come on our way, it's our job to live joy to our last breath.
Mm-hmm. I could agree with that for sure. So you talk in your book about romance and how messy and complicated it can be at any age. And so flesh out your story for us a little bit. Tell us about Freefalling.
Well, I don't want to ruin Freefalling, but what I will tell you is Freefalling starts with a woman in dementia, Lewy Body Dementia specifically. And we meet her at age 75. She thinks she's running an assisted living. In chapter 2, we understand what we were watching in chapter 1, which is she ran a 5-star hotel. She was a lovely woman. She was a detail manager, which is why she was telling those folks in the lobby to get to cleaning that hotel. But it was an assisted living after all.
That's all you're going to give us, isn't it?
That's the complicated part. The other thing that is not uncommon among women is in order to survive in our generation in the world of business, you had to be extremely dedicated. And this character, Charlotte, had been extremely dedicated to her work. And at age 60, she realizes she never did find the love of her life. Not that she hadn't had good companions along the way, but that one and only, that soulmate, that elusive part of her life left her feeling empty. And so it was her hope that before her chapters were done, that she would find that special someone. Mm-hmm. And that's where complications start to show up.
Could I just ask why you chose dementia as a running theme through your book?
Well, that's a really good question. I took care of an older man, an old Catholic priest, actually, and we had been friends for 25 years, and he got Lewy Body Dementia. And so I started this story thinking I was writing a senior romance because, well, I picked up romance books and they didn't look anything like me. So my heroine, by the way, has red hair and light skin, but that is not my life. It's just easier to write what you know. It was 2020 and I was still writing the book and my friend was calling me like 15 times a day. Mm-hmm. I was helping him get grounded because I couldn't go visit him as I had been doing before that. And so our daily visits turned into 15 visits, walking through his hallucinations with him and helping guide him to comfort. So before I knew it, my characters got Lewy Body Dementia. And when I went to final edit, the person who took my story said, Eme, this is an amazing story buried within these romance scenes that really take from what happened with Charlotte. And she was the one who said, Eme, it's really literary fiction. It's not a romance. Yet it is a romance because the story has romance stories within. But what's important from my point of view in terms of the legacy I want to leave is for us to see that, like in Freefalling, no matter what comes on our path, we still have the option for joy. We don't get to choose which challenge we're going to get. Mm-hmm. But with love, we can find joy.
Very well said. That's beautiful. So your assisted living experience, I know the Lewy Body Dementia was a big part of that in terms of writing your book. Tell us how what you learned from that, from your assisted living experience. How did that all fit together?
That is a really good question, Gail. The first place that I went to where I was marketing director and very successful, and they hired me away to the place where I was for 9.5 years. That's when I started to see seniors as us. I could see there was this lady, 102 years old, at the first place where I was working, Hazel. Oh my God. I loved getting to know Hazel because Hazel had a deep life. She had a lot of story. So instead of just being this haze of someone different, she became someone like me. And by the time I got to the second facility and ran that place, I was able to build programming that helped staff and families start to see the people that they were helping as people like them, rather than a set-aside project, but rather we are here, we are going here, and we deserve respect when we get there, as do the people we care about. So Freefalling is a way for me to bring that story forward without getting all preachy, because I thought a bit about doing nonfiction. It's easier to sell in many ways if I told people how to pick assisted living, how to choose good caregivers. But the reality is, to me, to flesh out a story showing it happening, that felt more inspiring to me.
Wow. Yeah. And as we talked, you and I, you talked a lot about ageism and all the myths that surround it. And I believe you said you want to slay them once and for all.
That's right. That's right. I'm tired of hearing that people get invisible over time, because they are visible if you keep your eyes open. And there's a story, I don't know if I told you this in our visit, but there was a couple living at the place that I was running, and I facilitated the care conferences with families because I didn't want to allocate that to somebody who didn't have the passion for seniors that I had. And the family that called this care conference was very concerned because their dad was having a relationship with a woman. Now, I will tell you, that particular woman was the best flirt I ever met. She was 93 years old and taught me a lot. And in fact, she inspired the first line of Freefalling, which is, "She leads with her breasts as she enters the lobby." You know, the one who just knows how to carry her body wherever she goes. Well, this man had been enchanted, as many had, but they became close friends. I don't know what it looked like behind closed doors. All I know is at 9 o'clock every night, he'd leave her apartment looking very happy. And I thought, you go, boy.
Yes, for sure.
That's right. And the family was concerned because they felt like, well, he has some confusion. He has some dementia. Well, the truth is 30% of us are going to die with some dementia. That doesn't mean it's dementia that is our last, fell swoop. But confusions happen. Does that mean you can't have love? So I was really upset about this and didn't quite know how to steer the family. And I said, talk to me about the fear. What does it mean to you if your dad is confused and he is feeling loved? Well, we're incensed. She could be taking advantage of him. And I bet he's very happy about that. True. But the story went that the family did end up moving their dad out of assisted living. And the mother, the lady, walked around lost. She was so sad. And I realized when I date and it doesn't work out, I feel like a 16-year-old. I was just shocked to see somebody at 93 feeling exactly like we did in our teens. You get your hopes up, you build the dreams, you're having joy in a different form than, yes, you can go to your garden, you can have a bubble bath. I'm a big fan of all these sensual ways of staying alive. Buy your own flowers. But with this woman, she had been able to touch a human being, apparently, and was very sad to lose that relationship. Not long thereafter, her daughter moved her to a memory care. I don't know that that was the right move, but I do know that she was very sad.
Could you say more, Eme, about what you saw, lessons you learned about dealing with change and loss?
Well, change and loss is part of life. And I saw people who were very sad. I'm starting to live some of that kind of sadness now, having lost 2 siblings this year. And by the time somebody's in their 90s, they've lost a lot of people. They've lost their friends. They've lost family members. I'm 70 and I've lost 2 already. I'm one of 9 kids. It makes me very sad to even comprehend the number of losses that will come in that part of my life. But we don't have to lose everything. We are going to be losing some of our abilities. We are going to be losing friends and family. But we have to figure out how we're going to keep a sense of self amid our losses. And that is not a silly mission. I think that I'm working on another book. Actually, I have 2 books in the works. But the idea of taking a look inside the true stories of what it feels like to be a senior, what those losses are looking like, and then being able to dig through the mud. I'd like to say they're all happy stories. Where we go isn't always happy. I have to tell you, losing my loved ones is not happy. Right. But what comes from that is what's important. And I know for me, as I've lost these siblings and they're among the younger members of my family, I am seeing it is our joy to live our life. And if something is not working, it is our responsibility to change it, because we're not going to get a lot of extra shots at dealing with things that just don't work. So let's take joy and live each of our moments every day. We don't know what we're getting. We don't know if we're going to get tomorrow. I could be gone today. Who knows what's going to happen? But if I'm going to leave a legacy, I want people to have a feeling of, let's do this. Let's live this life. We are not done. Yes, we have families to love. We have friends to love. But if we've struggled with finding out how to love ourselves, it's not too late to put ourselves as a priority in our stories.
And our lives are stories, aren't they?
They are. They are.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talk about how the story is intended to move people from judgment to compassion. How do you do that in using the written word? How do you do that?
Well, the goal is to get people past the first third of the book. Because, oh my God, you've got to lay out the foundation of a story. And I'm always saddened when I read a review that says, oh, I couldn't get past the first third because there was this going on. Well, yes, this going on is part of where judgment comes. And I had to learn how to move from judgment to compassion. There have been situations in my story where I got stuck having judgment about things that have happened. And only by getting a chance to kind of walk through that story and look inside the person from another perspective, do we get to compassion. And even the most troubled storyline in the book, where people have strong feelings, by the time you get to the end of the story, you get to see more of what made that character who he was, and where compassion fits for that character. Now, that being said, my next book, the one that's been intruding, because I have a story, Reconfigured Dreams, but I keep getting asked about this particular character. His name is Brandon. So in the next book, I'm taking Freefalling and I'm pulling the Brandon story from underneath and giving us more perspective on that character, so that those people that are still judging poor Brandon, and I judge him too, I'll be honest. I don't approve of choices this character made, but we know people who've made these choices. So the hope is that as I pull out people and create characters out of people we've known, if I take those characters and put them in a story so we can look at them from another perspective, not just standing there wiggling our finger at, well, you should not have done that. You know, most of us have gone through the should not somewhere, and we all hope for compassion at the end of the story.
So I'm curious, Eme, you said earlier that you have been writing for much of your life and that you wrote in lyrics, and you make it sound so seamless that you now are writing novels. How did you get from lyrics to, I can write a novel, I have a story that can be told that way?
How do they? Bold.
Bold?
Yep, just bold. You know, you have goals. I always said, for instance, I was going to run a marathon when I was 40. I did. And then I walked one at 43. Now, I did wear a T-shirt when I ran that marathon that said, build for comfort, not speed. And I think we just set these goals. I knew I had more story to tell. And as you read Freefalling, you're probably going to see the influence of my songwriting in the story.
Yes.
Some people get it. Some people don't. In final edits, I was told, trust your reader. And not all readers get it. But if you're writing in a lyrical style at times, you know, just a word, a sentence is a word. You know the rest of the sentence. You know what that's saying. And I would say that having written lyrics, it does influence the way I write. I also see paragraphs almost in a way that I would see a verse. And I kind of feel a rhythm within that. I also would say I hear the voices when I write primarily from dialogue, because there are things that are being said that sometimes I'll look down at the page and go, oh, yeah, that's right.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Do you teach writing? You should teach writing.
Oh, I don't know if I'd have the patience for that. I don't know if I know enough about it.
You said you had two books that so Brandon's story is one of them. Can you share what the other one is?
Reconfigured Dreams. I took advantage. You know what you do as an artist? You spin up what you experience in life and you spin it in different ways. So in Reconfigured Dreams, the lead character has been a professional singer, and she still is a singer at age 58. So we get a chance to go into the life of the music business. After a chaotic experience in her life, she hits that moment of, oh my God, who am I? Why is it this way? And she circles back to find somebody from her past. And in the process of doing that, she is learning not only about herself, but about a place where she had a lot of judgment and not very much compassion. And she sees the struggles of that person, and she forgives the struggles in her life as she sees herself through another point of view.
That
I've
sounds.
said that before, I'm sorry, Gal, go ahead.
Now you go, Catherine.
That it's seen from another point of view, from another perspective. And so I'm curious about, it sounds to me like you've almost mastered this notion of living every day with joy. And I'm wondering if there are, for our listeners, if there are areas for you or what you see in other people that kind of still, bring you up short, that are still try to interfere with the joy.
Well, that's a complicated question.
You have 2
I would
minutes.
say for me, a place where I still run into judgment is I hate it when people lie. That triggers something in me, and it's probably from my childhood. Who was the liar in my life? How did that work? And a lot of times when we start moving the focus, then you start looking at, well, where have I lied? What has not been true for me? And as the lights are moving for me around that sense of honesty, have I honestly given myself a fair shot? And that's kind of where I have found the courage to write the book. You said, how did you come to write the novel? Well, how much time do I have left? Have I been lying to myself that I can be done? Oh, I'm not a very good liar, I'll tell you. And I'm not going to live that lie. I'm not going to tell myself that I don't have the opportunity. I'm not going to tell myself I don't have another love coming. I believe that there is more in life, and I'm not done. And I am not going to tell myself the lie that says, you should settle down and, oh yeah, now you have wrinkles and now, none of it matters. That lie has to stop. But when I'm with other people and they're dishonest, it really rubs me the wrong way. And I don't mean just dishonesty about living their life, but, that is a trigger for me.
Thank you.
Amy, where can our listeners buy your book?
At any bookseller. The book is available at booksellers, and it's available on my website, which is emespirit.com, EMESPIRIT.com. You'll also see the book is available as an audiobook. I did the audio of that book, and you get it in an ebook or, of course, in print. Also, when you're at that website, you'll see I'm a photographer. That's kind of, back there's one of my pictures from Maroon Bells. Every day for 7.5 years, I've posted a picture on Facebook. And it's just my way of bringing a little more peace to the world. And it's kind of the journal I do now. It's part of my morning meditation. So some of them are really wild. Some of them are more normal. But I'm kind of like that. Some days I'm wild and some days I'm normal. Amy's spirit is my true confession. Huh?
Well, at one point, I noticed that I read that you sold your home and traveled for a year.
I did.
And is that where you took the bulk of the photographs? When?
Oh, I take them every day. I'll go out for hikes. I'm still hiking. I try to hit the 10,000 steps a day. But yes, some of them, this is Maroon Bells in Colorado, and I have other versions of that. That's my favorite mountain range. There's something about it that resonates for me. But yes, when I was on the road, I was taking pictures, but I didn't know I was a photographer. I just take pictures. Things are beautiful. I have to keep them. And then I realized I did a performance event, and you'll see that on Eme Spirit too. And my music is going to be put up there also. But the performance event, I wrote a song called Fly Away for my son in 1994. And when I moved here 8 years ago, in 2016, I actually performed a performance event. I sculpted a mountain out of styrofoam and wove a nest. What a grapevine. And as Eagle Woman, I sang the song over and over and pontificated about the transitions of life. I know it surprises you. I did 18 hours, 5 hours one day, 8 hours the next, 5 hours. And I had painted the picture. I wrote the song, sang the song, painted the picture. I just do it. That's kind of where I am. You just do it.
You just keep doing it. This has been, when we spoke, we said we could talk for 2 hours, and easily we could do that. Unfortunately, time has a way of going. And so we thank you so very much, Eme, for being on the show and for sharing your perspective of life and your book, Freefalling, with us.
Yes, thank you. And listeners, thank you for your loyalty. Because of you, our numbers are growing all across the country and overseas, and this is a good thing. We still need more subscribers and reviews on Apple Play and YouTube. Please support women over 70 and let your voice be heard, and help us change the conversation about women aging.
Good idea.